Hey, my name's Ethan Campbell. I'm 29, and I work as a marketing specialist for a big tech firm in Tampa, Florida. My life's pretty straightforward and quiet these days. I wake up early, drive to the office, handle campaigns and meetings, then head home to jog along the riverfront in the evenings. Weekends are for simple things like grabbing a latte and reading at a cafe or just sitting by the water. I don't have a girlfriend or a bustling social circle. After my last breakup 2 years ago, I've gotten used to the solitude. It's not loneliness exactly, it's more like a comfortable routine where I don't have to explain myself to anyone. But deep down, I know that empty feeling when the day's over, and it's just me and my thoughts. That Saturday morning in early summer, I decided to head out to Clearwater Beach before the crowds hit. The sky was clear blue, with a light breeze carrying that salty ocean scent, and the sand was still mostly empty except for a few joggers and dog walkers. I parked in the lot, grabbed my book and coffee, and found a spot near some dunes, away from the main path. I spread out a towel, sat down with my back against a low wall, and opened up The Great Alone by Kristen Hanna. The waves rolled in steadily, and I took a sip of my latte, feeling that rare sense of not needing to be anywhere or anyone specific. Just me, the book, and the sea. That's when I noticed her. A woman walking briskly along the shoreline, her tall frame moving with purpose but a hint of urgency. She had dark brown hair tied back in a messy ponytail, wearing a simple white t-shirt and faded jeans that were rolled up at the ankles. She kept glancing over her shoulder, her eyes scanning the beach like she was avoiding something or someone. As she got closer, I recognized her face and it hit me like a wave. Vanessa Mitchell, my direct boss at work. The 42-year-old head of the marketing department. The one who commanded every meeting with sharp insights and unshakable confidence. At the office, she was the kind of woman who made you sit up straighter just by entering the room. Always polished, decisive, and a bit intimidating in the best way. But here she looked different. No makeup, no power suit, just raw vulnerability. Her face was pale and her steps quickened, as if she were trying to outpace whatever was behind her. I considered looking away, pretending I hadn't seen her. After all, running into your boss on a weekend could be awkward, especially when she seemed off. But before I could decide, a tall man in a black jacket appeared further down the beach, his pace matching hers, eyes locked on her back. He shouted her name, "Vanessa!" And she flinched visibly, changing direction toward the dunes, her expression turning to panic as she scanned the area for an escape. Our eyes met. For a split second, she hesitated, then headed straight toward me. I stood up instinctively, brushing sand off my shorts. "Vanessa?" I said, keeping my voice casual but concerned. She reached me, her breathing uneven, and leaned in close enough that only I could hear. "Ethan, please help me. That's my ex-boyfriend, Jack. He won't leave me alone." Before I could respond, she grabbed my hand, her palm cold and slightly trembling, and squeezed it tight. "Pretend we're together. Like we're on a date, please." I nodded, pulling her gently down to sit beside me on the towel. The man, Jack, had stopped about 50 feet away, pretending to check his phone, but his glare was fixed on us. The tension was thick, like the humid air before a storm. Vanessa whispered, "He's been stalking me since we broke up 2 years ago. Texts, flowers at my door, showing up places. I thought he'd stop, but..." Her voice trailed off and I could feel her body tense against mine. To make it look real, I draped an arm around her shoulders, pulling her closer. "Just act natural," I murmured. "Talk about the weather or something." We started chatting awkwardly at first, about how the beach was perfect today, how the water looked inviting for a swim. I even mentioned the book I was reading, handing it to her to flip through. She forced a laugh, commenting on the plot, but her eyes kept darting toward Jack. He paced slowly, not approaching, but not leaving either, like he was waiting for a crack in our facade. The air felt heavier by the minute. Vanessa shifted, her leg brushing mine, and whispered, "He's still watching. We need to make this more convincing." Before I could react, she said, "Sit still," and moved onto my lap, wrapping her arms around my neck like we were a couple lost in the moment. My face heated up. I could feel the blood rushing to my cheeks, but I played along, smiling and resting my hands on her waist. "You okay?" I asked softly. She nodded, her head against my shoulder. Thank you for this. I didn't know what else to do. We kept talking about the seagulls diving for fish, the tourists starting to arrive, anything to fill the silence and look normal. Jack edged closer at one point, but I met his gaze directly, not backing down, and he finally turned away, walking further down the beach. He didn't disappear completely, though. I spotted him lingering near the parking lot. Vanessa let out a shaky breath. He won't give up that easily, she said. At least not yet. I leaned in closer to her ear. Stay here as long as you need. I'm not going anywhere. For the first time that morning, she looked at me, really looked, and I saw a flicker of gratitude mixed with something deeper. In that moment, I realized Vanessa, the unbreakable boss I'd admired from afar, was relying on me to get through this. And strangely, it didn't feel like a burden. It felt like the start of something I couldn't yet name. We sat there on the beach for what felt like half an hour, the sun climbing higher and the beach starting to fill with families and sunbathers. Jack lingered in the distance, sometimes sitting on a bench, other times pacing like he was waiting for us to slip up. Vanessa's hand stayed in mine, her grip loosening a bit as she steadied her breathing. She glanced at me occasionally, her blue eyes searching mine for reassurance. He's been like this for months, she whispered finally, her voice barely audible over the waves. We dated for 5 years, but it turned toxic. Constant jealousy, checking my phone, showing up unannounced. I ended it 2 years ago, but he keeps coming back. Flowers at my door, texts from burner numbers. I changed my locks, blocked him everywhere, but he finds ways. I nodded, keeping my arm around her to maintain the act. That sounds exhausting. Have you gone to the police? She shook her head slightly. Not yet. I didn't want it to blow up at work or make me look weak. But days like this, I don't know how much longer I can handle it alone. Her words hung between us, and I felt a pull I couldn't explain. A mix of protectiveness and curiosity about this side of her I'd never seen at the office. At work, Vanessa was the one who led brainstorming sessions with laser focus, the one who turned failing campaigns around with a single pivot. Here, she was human, vulnerable, and it made her even more real. As more people arrived, Jack seemed to blend into the crowd, but I could tell he wasn't gone. I can't stay here much longer, Vanessa said, her voice edged with anxiety. He'll follow me home if he thinks I'm alone. I thought for a moment, then suggested, how about we grab coffee? There's a place right up the boardwalk, crowded, public. And if he sees us leaving together, it might deter him. She looked at me, a flicker of relief crossing her face mixed with hesitation. Okay, but don't leave my side right now. We stood up slowly, and I kept hold of her hand as we walked toward the boardwalk. Sure enough, I spotted Jack trailing at a distance, his phone out like he was texting, but his eyes on us. The cafe was a small spot with outdoor seating overlooking the Gulf, buzzing with tourists ordering iced drinks and pastries. I picked a table by the window where we could see the beach path clearly. Vanessa ordered a latte to match mine, and we sat close, our knees touching under the table as if it were a real date. I'm sorry for dragging you into this, she said softly, stirring her drink. You probably came here for peace, not drama. I shook my head. Don't apologize. You're not doing anything wrong. Besides, it's not every day I get to play the hero on a Saturday morning. She managed a small laugh, the first genuine one I'd heard from her that day. Hero, huh? At work, you're the guy who nails those ad copy revisions without complaining. I didn't peg you for beach rescues. We talked more as the minutes ticked by, about the office first. Light stuff like the latest team meeting disaster or the intern who kept messing up the coffee orders. But it shifted naturally to personal territory. She opened up about the pressures of her role, the late nights reviewing budgets, the constant need to prove herself in a male-dominated field, the isolation that came with being the boss. Everyone thinks I have it all together, she said, her eyes on the horizon. But truthfully, after Jack, I've been guarded. It's hard to trust anyone anymore. I shared a bit about my own life, the breakup that left me wary of relationships, how I preferred solo runs and quiet weekends to avoid getting hurt again. I get it, I told her. Sometimes solitude feels safer than risking it all. For a while, we just sat there, the conversation flowing easier than I'd expected, like we'd known each other beyond emails and deadlines. When we finally left the cafe, Jack was nowhere in sight, but I insisted on walking her to her car. "I'll drive you home if you want," I offered. She hesitated but nodded. Just to be safe. The ride to her condo in a quiet suburb north of Tampa was mostly silent at first, the radio playing soft indie tunes. We chatted about music. Turns out we both liked Fleetwood Mac, and by the time I pulled up to her building, the tension had eased a little. "Thank you, Ethan," she said, unbuckling her seatbelt. "Really, I don't know what I would have done without you today." Before she got out, she pulled out her phone. "Here, my number, if anything happens tonight, or if you just want to check in." I saved it and nodded. "Call me if you need anything." "Anytime." That night, back in my apartment, I couldn't shake the day's events. The image of her panicked face, the feel of her hand in mine, it all replayed in my mind. We started texting the next day. Simple check-ins at first, like, "Everything okay?" from me, and "Quiet so far, thanks" from her. But it evolved quickly. Sharing memes about bad bosses, ironically, recommending podcasts, even venting about work frustrations. A few days later, she suggested meeting for coffee after hours, just to talk. We met at a small spot downtown, and what started as a quick chat turned into hours of conversation about books, travel dreams, and the little things that made life bearable. Vanessa seemed less on edge with each meeting. Her smiles came easier, her laughs more frequent. Over the following weeks, our encounters became routine. A walk in the park one evening, a casual bar visit to catch a Rays game another. She opened up more about Jack, the emotional toll, the fear that kept her up at night, and I found myself sharing vulnerabilities I'd kept hidden, like how my ex's betrayal made me doubt my worth. There was no pressure, no labels, but a quiet bond forming. Vanessa started to relax around me, her guarded walls cracking just a bit. Yet I knew the storm wasn't over. Jack was still out there, and our growing closeness felt like both a shield and a risk. Those days after our unexpected encounter on the beach, Vanessa and I grew closer in a quiet, unspoken way. It started with the texts, simple at first, like her checking in the next morning. "No sign of him last night. Thanks again for yesterday." I'd reply with something light, "Glad to hear. Let me know if you need anything." But soon, the messages flowed anytime, day or night. Work rants about a botched presentation, her laughing at a colleague's awkward email, or me sharing a funny meme about office life. We'd talk about everything from the latest Netflix flops to her cat's quirky habits, like how it knocked over her coffee mug every morning. It felt natural, like peeling back layers we'd both kept hidden at the office. A few evenings later, she suggested grabbing takeout. "Pizza, my treat for the beach rescue," her text read. I agreed, and she showed up at my apartment with a box from a local spot, steam rising from the pepperoni and cheese. We sat on my couch, plates balanced on our knees, watching a Rays baseball game on my small TV. She cheered when they scored, her laughter filling the room in a way that made the space feel less empty. "I haven't done this in forever," she admitted between bites. "Just relaxing without looking over my shoulder." I nodded, feeling a warmth I hadn't expected. We talked late into the night, about her love for indie playlists, how she'd blast them during long drives to clear her head, and I shared mine, pulling up a Spotify list on my phone. No pressure, no awkward silences. It was just easy. Over the next couple of weeks, these meetups became a routine. One night, she came over after a tough day at work, carrying a bottle of wine. We listened to records on my old turntable, her feet tucked under her on the couch as she vented about the endless meetings. "You're good at this," she said softly at one point. "Listening without judging." I shrugged it off, but inside it meant something. Seeing her unwind, her shoulders relaxing, her smiles reaching her eyes more often. The guarded boss from the office was fading, replaced by someone real. Someone who laughed at my bad jokes and shared stories about her childhood in a small Florida town. There was a thin thread connecting us now, familiar yet strange, like we'd skipped the formalities and jumped straight into something deeper. I noticed the changes in her. Fewer anxious glances at her phone, more genuine laughs in our conversations. Her texts started including photos, a sunset from her balcony, her cat mid-yawn, and I'd send back shots from my runs or a funny billboard I'd seen. But I knew the storm wasn't truly over. Jack was still a shadow, even if he hadn't shown up since the beach. Vanessa mentioned offhand how she'd started varying her routes home, just in case. Then, one Friday night, it all came crashing back. I was just settling into my couch with a book, the rain pattering against my window from a sudden Florida downpour when my phone buzzed. It was Vanessa, her voice choked and panicked on the other end. "Ethan, he's here, standing outside my condo, pounding on the door. Please. Can you come? I'm scared." My heart dropped. Without a second thought, I grabbed my keys and jacket, racing out into the storm. The drive to her place in the suburbs felt endless. Wipers slashing through sheets of rain, my mind racing with worst-case scenarios. When I pulled up, the yellow glow of the streetlights cut through the downpour, and there he was, Jack, hammering on her door, yelling obscenities that echoed down the quiet street. "Open up, Vanessa. We need to talk. You can't hide forever." Water streamed down his face, but his rage was undeterred. Vanessa's lights were on inside, but the door stayed shut. My pulse thundered as I got out of the car, the rain soaking me instantly. I approached steadily, keeping my voice calm but firm. "Hey, you need to leave. Now." He spun around, eyes wild, sizing me up. "Who the hell are you? This is between me and her," he snarled, stepping closer, fists clenched. I didn't flinch, pulling out my phone. "I'm calling the cops if you don't back off. She's made it clear she doesn't want you here." He lunged forward a step, spewing threats. "You think you can play boyfriend? I'll make sure you regret this." But something in my steady gaze must have registered. Or maybe it was the sound of me dialing 911 because he backed off, muttering curses as he stormed to his car and peeled away, tires screeching on the wet pavement. The door cracked open a moment later, and Vanessa practically collapsed onto the steps, her face streaked with tears, hands trembling as she clutched the frame. "Ethan," she whispered, her voice breaking. I rushed to her, pulling her into a hug under the awning as the rain pounded around us. She sobbed quietly against my shoulder, her body shaking. I was so scared. He just showed up, banging and yelling. I thought he'd break in. I held her tight, rubbing her back. "It's okay. He's gone. You're safe now." We stayed like that for minutes, the storm mirroring the chaos inside her. Eventually, she pulled back slightly, wiping her eyes. "I'm sorry, I didn't want to drag you into this danger." I shook my head. "Don't be. I'm glad you called." We went inside and I stayed the whole night on her sofa, listening as she poured out the fear she'd been bottling up. The nightmares, the constant paranoia, the way Jack's obsession had isolated her from friends. She cried off and on, and I just sat there, offering quiet words when she needed them. As dawn broke, light filtering through the curtains in soft grays, Vanessa stood in the kitchen brewing coffee, her eyes red-rimmed but her posture straighter. "Today, I'm filing for a protective order and reporting him fully," she said, her voice resolute. "I can't live in fear anymore, and I can't keep pulling you into this." I walked over, taking her hand. "I'm here, Vanessa. Whatever happens, you're not facing this alone." We spent the morning at the police station. She gave her statement, showed texts and photos as evidence, and the officers assured her they'd handle it. On the drive back, she leaned her head against the window, then turned to me with a small smile. "You didn't have to do this." But I knew I did, because somewhere along the way, this had stopped being about work or coincidence. It was about her and us. The news of Vanessa filing the report spread through the office like wildfire, faster than I could have imagined. It started with whispers in the break room. Someone must have overheard her on a call or seen the police paperwork when she took a personal day. By Monday, the rumors were everywhere. "Did you hear about Vanessa's ex? Stalking her or something?" At first, it was sympathetic, people asking if she was okay in hushed tones during meetings. But then it twisted, as rumors often do, looping me in. "Ethan was with her when it happened," one colleague said in the elevator, not realizing I was in the back. "They've been hanging out a lot lately. Think it's more than just support?" I felt the shift immediately. A few coworkers who'd been friendly started giving me wide berths in the hallways, their conversations cutting off when I approached. Even my desk mate, a guy I'd grabbed lunches with for months, became curt, replying to my emails with one-liners instead of our usual banter. The stares were the worst. Subtle glances during team huddles like they were piecing together a puzzle. Young guy cozying up to the boss. I overheard in the copy room one afternoon. Classic move for a promotion. It stung, not because I cared about their opinions, but because it cheapened what Vanessa and I had built. We weren't some office fling. This was real, born from a crisis, not calculation. It all came to a head a week later when I got an email from HR. Please come to my office at 2 p.m. My stomach knotted as I walked down the hall, past cubicles where eyes followed me. The HR manager, a stern woman in her 50s named Karen, closed the door behind me and got straight to it. We've heard some concerns about your relationship with Vanessa, she said, folding her hands on the desk. Fraternization isn't strictly forbidden here, but it can create perceptions of favoritism, especially with the age difference and her position. She paused, eyeing me. We need you to maintain professional boundaries. No more off-hours involvement that could be misinterpreted. I left her office feeling like I'd been punched in the gut. Back at my desk, I stared at my screen, the words blurring. Was this worth it? The rumors, the isolation, the risk to my job? Part of me wanted to hand in my resignation right then, pack up and move to another city where no one knew me. Another part replayed the beach, the cafe, the nights on my couch, moments that felt too genuine to walk away from. That evening I texted Vanessa. HR called me in, rumors are flying. Her reply came quick. I figured, meet me after work, we need to talk. We met at a quiet park near the office, away from prying eyes. She looked tired, her hair pulled back severely, but her expression was resolute. I'm sorry this is hitting you, she said as we walked along a shaded path. I should have known it would leak. I vented then, the stares, the whispers, the HR lecture. It makes me feel like I'm doing something wrong, like we're a scandal. She stopped, turning to face me. We're not. What we have, it's real. But people love to judge what they don't understand. The age gap, the boss-employee thing, they see drama, not two people supporting each other. We sat on a bench as the sun dipped lower and she opened up about her own doubts. I've dealt with this before. After Jack, I swore off relationships, especially with someone younger. But you didn't push, you just showed up. Her words eased the knot in my chest a little, but the weight lingered. Over the next few days, the isolation grew. A project I'd been leading got reassigned for balance, and friends outside work started asking probing questions after hearing through the grapevine. I skipped a team happy hour, not wanting the awkwardness, and spent the evening alone in my apartment, questioning everything. Then came the rainstorm, a classic Florida deluge that turned the streets into rivers. I was pacing my living room, debating whether to text Vanessa and suggest we cool things off, when there was a knock at my door. It was her, soaked through despite an umbrella, holding 2 wrapped subs and looking determined. I didn't want to call first, she said, stepping inside. Figured you'd overthink it. We dried off and she set the food on the coffee table, sitting beside me as thunder rumbled outside. No words at first, just the sound of rain hammering the windows, then she broke the silence. I've been where you are, wanting to run from the judgment. But running doesn't fix it. Facing it does. I poured out my fears, the job, the loneliness, the worry that I'd dragged her into more mess. She listened, then took my hand. We're not wrong for this. And if the world doesn't get it, that's their problem. But you have to decide if you're in. Tears stung my eyes. I hadn't realized how much I needed to hear that. I'm in, I whispered. She smiled softly, leaning her head on my shoulder, and we sat there as the storm raged on. In that moment, the doubts didn't vanish, but they felt smaller. Vanessa's presence was a reminder. We'd weathered worse together already. The storm finally passed, as they always do if you hold on long enough. Jack was served with a restraining order after the police investigation, backed by Vanessa's detailed logs of his harassment. He fought it at first, sending one last barrage of angry voicemails, but the court didn't budge. He ended up moving out of state, rumor had it to stay with family in Georgia, and the calls stopped. The texts dried up. For the first time in years, Vanessa could walk to her car without glancing over her shoulder, sleep through the night without jolting awake at every creak. It wasn't an overnight miracle. There were still echoes of fear, like when a stranger's car idled too long outside her condo. But slowly, surely, she reclaimed her space. At work, Vanessa stepped back into her role with a renewed edge. She was more decisive in meetings, pushing bolder campaigns that she'd hesitated on before, but she also let her guard down in small ways, sharing her story in a team huddle about work-life balance, becoming a quiet advocate for colleagues dealing with personal issues. "I've been through it," she'd say simply, and people listened. The rumors about us faded too, replaced by respect for how she'd handled the ordeal. As for me, I wasn't the quiet guy buried in reports anymore. I took on bigger projects, spoke up more in brainstorms, even led a small team on a client pitch. The experience had changed me, made me bolder, less afraid of standing out. We started dating openly without fanfare or announcements. No big social media reveals or office memos, it just happened naturally. We'd grab dinners at seaside spots in Clearwater, sharing plates of fresh grouper and talking about everything from her favorite childhood vacations to my dreams of traveling out west someday. Weekends became ours, hikes in the state parks, where she'd point out birds she recognized from her ornithology phase in college, or lazy afternoons at my place, cooking simple meals like pasta with homemade sauce while jazz played in the background. One evening, as we walked along the beach where it all began, the sun dipping into the Gulf in a blaze of orange, I asked her, "Do you ever worry the storm might come back?" She stopped, turning to face me, her hand slipping into mine. "Of course I do. Life doesn't give guarantees, but if it does, we'll weather it. Because we've already proven we can." Her words lingered, a quiet promise. We didn't rush into anything big, no talks of moving in or rings yet. Instead, we built on the small things, her leaving a toothbrush at my place, me stocking her favorite tea in my kitchen. There were challenges still, the occasional nightmare where she'd wake up shaking, calling me at 2 a.m., or my own doubts creeping in during quiet moments, wondering if I was enough for someone who'd been through so much. But we'd talk through it. No walls between us anymore. I realized then that love isn't about erasing the past or avoiding the rain. It's about choosing to stay when the wind howls. Vanessa taught me that. Her strength, her vulnerability, the way she'd lean on me not out of weakness but trust. And in return, I gave her the space to heal, to laugh without reservation, to dream again. We haven't married, haven't mapped out every step of the future, but waking up beside her some mornings, hearing her soft breathing as the Florida sun filters through the blinds, I know I've chosen right. Life throws what it will, the glances, the gossip, the trials, but as long as there's someone willing to stand with you through the gale, holding your hand tight, that's happiness. Not because love came easy, but because we chose to stay.